Welcome. Thank you all for being with us this morning. This is the In Your Experience speaker series hosted by Propeller's Experience Design Practice, where we cover experience design topics, bring in experts to speak about their experience in the field. This is the first of a series of topics that we will cover throughout the year, with today's event focused on e-commerce. I'm Max Blumenthal, a management consultant with Propeller, and I'll be the moderator for our panel discussion today. Deedam's here on the back end doing the Zoom hosting. She'll be looking through the chat to make sure we capture any of your questions. So make sure to use the Q&A feature to add your questions. And during the Q&A portion of the panel discussion, we'll address them. Our event today is called Beyond the Buy Button, How Companies Innovate Through E-Commerce. And we've invited some guests here that are experts in e-commerce. E-commerce, it's a hot topic with our clients, with advancements in the space in recent years, both out of necessity and a driver of new sales. So these speakers all work in e-commerce space and have many insights to share. So we hope you have some takeaways after hearing them speak and what it takes to design a successful e-commerce experience. First, though, we'll open with a little bit about Propeller, who's the one hosting this event. So as you know, Propeller, we're hosting, but who are we exactly? We are a mid-sized management consulting firm originally founded in Portland, Oregon in 2012. We now have 6 other locations throughout the US listed here on the slide. We've had a lot of growth in recent years. We now have 230 plus employees firm-wide, and most of our clients are Fortune 500 companies with headquarters within our locations. So one thing that's interesting about us is our local model. What that means is that none of our consultants have to travel outside their home geography for client work, which allows us to have great local connections to our clients. We also are industry agnostic, so we don't specialize in any one industry. However, we work across major industries like retail, tech, healthcare, public sectors, utilities, and more. We also are partially employee owned through an employee stock ownership plan. It's just another incentive we have to do great work. And lastly, we're engaged in our communities. So not only with local clients, but also supporting our local communities through partnerships with nonprofits like pro bono consulting and community service. So with that, now to just get right into the topic you all came to learn about, how companies innovate through e-commerce. As a general definition, when we say e-commerce, we're referring to buying and selling goods online. As a consumer, e-commerce offers us convenience and ability to shop without going to a traditional brick-and-mortar store. And for businesses, it's become an essential part of doing business. There are obvious benefits of increased sales and revenue, but e-commerce also allows businesses to reach new markets and customers with greater flexibility. So to preface the conversation today, we wanted to share some figures that show some recent trends in this space that help set the context for our panel discussion. We've seen a rise in online shopping post-pandemic. No surprises there, with global e-commerce on the rise to about 22% of retail sales. A new trend is buying online and returning in store, and that happens about 17% of the time with merchandise. And we've seen actually in recent months, like some companies cracking down on this, like Amazon with their UPS returns. So just an interesting trend there. We've seen more shopping done either directly through social media or at least heavily influenced by it. So this so-called social commerce, that's a $1.2 trillion market opportunity, another huge trend. And lastly, I feel like, how can we not have this conversation without talking about the impacts of AI and machine learning? They are a force behind the scenes for personalizing experiences. We've probably all seen a huge uptick in AI tools recently, especially in the last couple months or weeks. These help businesses work more efficiently, but AI has been used for years in personalization and e-commerce experiences. So the bottom line, really, companies that prioritize e-commerce are better equipped to capture demand, navigate economic fluctuations, unexpected challenges, so that we feel makes a smart investment. And we thought a really good topic to cover today. So with that, we're excited to talk with our panelists who know e-commerce inside and out, and they'll share their experience with us all. Okay, here are our panelists. Fantastic panelists. They have background across several industries, They actually work in two of our Propeller markets, Dallas and Minneapolis. So I'll just do some brief introductions, and there's some fun quotes here on the screen too. Maria Smith Brackenridge is a senior innovation consultant with the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. She manages the airport's key initiative programs, utilizing emerging technologies. Prior to joining the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, she spent the past 20 years in strategy, economic development, and the commercialization of emerging technologies to build new revenue streams. This includes time spent with government, the private sector, and startups. She's the co-founder of the Internet of Things Dallas Special Interest Group, a volunteer with the Institute of Electrical Engineers, and a co-chair for the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport Community Outreach Women's Initiative Network program, receiving numerous awards for her contributions. Mara Thorsrud is the head of UX for the Sleep Number app. She's an accomplished UX designer with over 20 years of experience in design and digital product development. She has worked with a variety of agencies, startups, and local corporations designing for B2B, B2C, e-com, and retention programs. A couple of her favorite accomplishments include turning a New York fashion startup into a multi-million-dollar business and establishing UX as a practice in the oldest school photography company in the country. She is currently designing at the intersection between digital and physical with an Internet of Things platform focused on consumer engagement and helping her users get a better night's sleep. And lastly, Trace Wallace is Propeller's very own Senior Director of Brand and Experience. He oversees branding, marketing, and the experience design practice for the firm. Trace built and scaled Propeller's experience design practice into a $3 million line of business. In his role, he collaborates with Fortune 500 leaders across various industries, providing growth strategies and advising on digital experiences. He has decades of consulting experience, starting with Deloitte and serving in the public sector and utilities, and Propeller, where he led engagements in digital transformation and customer experience strategy at industry leaders such as Nike, Gap, Humana, PGE, Gore, and WestRock. So with that, we are ready to move on to questions for our panelists. So we'll kind of go one by one here and maybe just have each of you tell us a little bit about your experience just to get us started. We'll start with, we'll go left to right. How about that? We'll start with Maria first.
Okay, well, good morning. As Max outlined, I work at an airport, and one of the challenges that we find is that we are a physical space. We are a space where people come, and with e-commerce and the trends where consumers are looking more at the now market, how can I pre-plan things like my trips, my journeys, what I want to purchase? The airport has a little bit of a different strategy that we have to take. So we have been looking, and most of the work that I do is in an innovation group here at DFW. The innovation group has to look at digital technologies. We have to look at the next customer journey. I know all of you guys were looking at where am I going to go once this COVID thing lifts. You want to get on a plane. You want to go through an airport. Well, an airport had to be ready for that. And one of the ways that we anticipated people coming back was, how do we provide new services? How do we entice them to look at still the retail, the way that they spend their dollars at an airport, because dollars are extremely important. And then we had to look at multi-generation. Now, my 90-year-old grandmother is not going to spend her dollars the same way as my 24-year-old daughter. So we looked at platforms, we looked at technologies, and then we understood, how do we build from that baseline that we have to have a physical space? So it's a little different than some of the other challenges that you're probably seeing out in the field. And I'll stop there and let the others.
Yeah, that's great. I love hearing about, we have a few folks here, and I feel like, Mara, you might touch this, the intersection of physical and digital spaces and how much that's come into play recently. So I think, Mara, we'll go in order here. What we had up on the screen. So if you want to just, introduce yourself a little bit. Oh, and you are on mute. I think I'd rather tell you now than have you go on too long.
Oh no, I'm on mute. So currently, so sorry about that. You mentioned I was working at Sleep Number, and I'm working on that intersection between digital and physical. A lot of what I do really is more retention focused and engagement focused at Sleep Number, but I have a lot of experience working in e-com. So prior to my experience at Sleep Number, I worked for Shutterfly and Lifetouch. And as you may know, Lifetouch Photography is one of the oldest school photography companies in the country. And I helped moms and dads be able to buy their kids' photography every year. It's a bigger challenge than you think, coming from a company where they have 80 years worth of history and everything started on paper. So, trying to innovate in that space was definitely a challenge. And then, trying to help parents be able to preserve all those memories forever in Shutterfly in a digital capacity, right? That's kind of the new innovation that Lifetouch was bringing with our partnership with Shutterfly. And then prior to that, I worked in the fashion industry, working with a fashion startup in the subscription space, which is really different when it comes to e-com. Because it's not just that one-off purchase. You have your monthly purchase, and then in between you have additional purchases usually that we're trying to get you to make, right? So not only do they want you to have your monthly subscription fee, they want you to buy the clothes that you're renting in your subscription model if you absolutely love them. So it's kind of a mix on platforms where it's a subscription service, it's an e-com purchase, and kind of a digital experience too, so you can pick out what you want to wear and then get it home. So kind of a variety of things, I think, in my most recent past, but definitely something I have been really fond of doing over the last probably 10 years. So.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, we have definitely seen with our client work, the ways of paying has been very new, like a new uptick of subscription model, single time purchase, customer loyalty programs, all of that. We've had really exciting projects in that space too. And with that, maybe Trace, you could tell more about kind of background experience in e-commerce as well.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Max. So yeah, I got my start in business consulting about 10 years ago, and I started in sort of organizational change. And so we really worked with our clients to think about how they optimize their investments in technology, in process, in data, and ensure the kind of people foundations were there, right? They understood the case for change, why it was being implemented, the benefits, and then how to actually work within the new model that the change sort of brought about. And I mentioned that because I think that's a nice thread into the work that we're doing, largely on topics around customer and employee experience, strategies, in implementations that touch not just the technology or that front end experience, but also the kind of back end operational piece. So how do we make sure that, the value that we're creating for the customer is really, a consistent system of delivery from a process, people, technology, and data perspective. So we kind of focus on both that kind of front end and back end, which I think is necessary in order to ensure that you're delivering that consistent experience. Your consumers can work with you, on the channel that they want to, when they want to. And, we're also, kind of on the topic of personalization. And I think we'll get into this a little bit more. You're able to really build that total customer profile on those points of interaction so that you can, with their permission, provide better experiences, right? Whether that's recommendations for certain products or services that they either regularly buy or customers kind of similar to their profile often buy, to, just improving the shopping experience, whether that's leveraging, more emerging tech like, AR and VR, to provide, some more kind of immersive or different kind of like try-on kind of digital try-on experiences, which we're seeing more of kind of integrated in the shopping journey. So, just zooming back out, we do a lot of work with our clients thinking about, at least in this particular point in time, I think there's a connection with the physical and digital. So a lot of companies right now are thinking about, how do they really operate more efficiently and effectively with the resources that they do have, specifically in brick and mortar, and deliver those really great kind of premium experiences. As the kind of tightening of commercial space is certainly sort of a trend, and our clients are thinking about how to creatively use space most effectively to drive business growth. So that's happening. And then we're also seeing experimentation and, I would say continued investment in technologies like chatbots, loyalty and rewards to drive, lifetime value, as well as, personalizing, those customer journeys in order to drive, as Mara mentioned, that engagement, back with the brand. I think one also really cool piece, and then I'll kind of throw it back to you, Max, is this whole kind of idea or play around ecosystems. So clients not thinking that they need to necessarily own the entire like end-to-end journey, but they can think about either the technology players that are excelling in maybe different aspects of that journey and how they can kind of partner with them or integrate with them, whether it's back-end kind of financial like payment services technology, or it's maybe, contracting services, right? To install an energy efficient, sort of battery. There's a whole kind of suite of resources depending on the kind of the industry that we want to chat about. But I think that's really interesting too. So it's sort of partnership by way of strategy and thinking about how you get sort of quicker to market and continue to deliver value and sort of orchestrate that journey for your consumer, which is driving engagement with the brand.
Right. Yeah. You touched on definitely a lot of very interesting topics there. One of which was personalization. And I feel like there's probably a lot of folks interested in how that happens. It may, from a customer facing perspective, seem super smooth and seamless, but I think we all know that on the back end, there is a lot happening. It's like a duck that looks calm on the surface, but its feet are just like pedaling away below. There's a lot of kind of work happening behind the scenes. So I kind of wanted to open this next question up for just kind of about personalization and how you've seen kind of data or other technology used to provide this experience. Any insight there and how folks can think about how personalization happens? And I'll take whoever is wanting to jump in.
I'll give you the start if you wish. As you know, the journey that your customer takes is very personalized. It is based on what they won't know, what they want, what they need. Here at the airport, we do a lot of work on those market trends. How do we personalize the journey for each and every passenger? And if you have 73 million passengers that are coming through your, let's just say, your purchasing channel, you want to make sure that you touch and you learn and you understand what their needs are. Some of the things that we do is we offer premium services, and somebody can actually take a parking service or a bag service, or you can look at what some of the airports are now doing, and they're digitalizing the journey before somebody even shows up. And it takes the model of what retail stores were doing when they realized we've got to generate revenue somewhere else. One of the things that we noticed during the past 3 years at this airport is the increase in cargo, the increase in producers and manufacturers using our airplanes or their planes to actually get goods and services door to door to a passenger. Well, those passengers are also interested in, I want the now experience. So we've looked at digital vouchers. We've looked at how do I take something to Trace or to Maya and say, what do you want when you're customizing your experience and your journey? Just to give one example, Istanbul Airport has done a chatbot that actually allows you to purchase and look at retail stores inside their airport. So they have a tiny chat bot that learns and customizes to that experience of that passenger called SIGA. And once you arrive, you can say, hey, I want to purchase a Coach purse. Take me directly to the retail store. The retail store already has it packaged, ready to go, and you walk out into your gate on the plane. But that's a personalized experience that was not available 5 years ago. So we've been learning from the rest of the industry, retail, however you want to put it, but we've been learning and saying, hey, maybe we can leverage that for the people that come and go through our physical space.
I think Trace hit on it earlier when he said lifetime value. So I wanted to kind of tease that out just a little bit, because it's a big buzzword right now, right? Lifetime value, and trying to understand what the heck does that actually mean, right? So, you know, when I was at Shutterfly, lifetime value, it was not that singular purchase. And I know ecom in its early days, it was really focused on conversion and that one-time experience, right? Let's get you in, let's get you to buy, let's, check you out and get you out the door. But now I think businesses are really thinking about how they can help that person over a longer period of time, right? And it's not about that instant purchase today. It's more about, what is this customer going to give us as a business over the length of time? And then that really ties into how things need to be personalized, right? So when it comes to like your kids' photography, for instance, you get school photos every single year, right? It's tough when no one remembers that little Johnny goes to the same school every year. He's going to be in 5th grade this year, but he's in, or 4th grade this year, he's in 5th grade next year. So not only remembering all of those pieces, right? But also like school photography, it's so ingrained in American culture, right? And it's like, oh, you get these pictures, and then what do you do with them? You give them to grandma. Grandma sticks one on the wall, but then what, right? So when the partnership between LifeTouch and Shutterfly happened, we realized that it was really important to kind of pull all of that experience through, right? Like Shutterfly is all about personalizing photography, and, you get a mug or get a photo book, or, remember these things throughout time, right? So it was more about, let's get you to buy photos this fall. And it kind of changed into, let's help Sarah purchase photos for Johnny throughout his high school, or, elementary and junior high and middle school and all these experiences, and then help mom keep track of all that throughout time. Right. And then she can keep all of those together. And if she wants to buy, she can do that later too. Right. So it's not about that I need to purchase right now moment, and customizing her experience throughout time. So, she can go back in 4 years and say, oh yeah, I had his 3rd grade picture somewhere. Oh yeah, here it is at Shutterfly. And now I can make grandma a little book of all of the, my kids' photos throughout time. So
yeah,
I'm
a big Shutterfly.
those things.
I love Shutterfly. We make like a yearbook every year of just what we did that year. And yeah, to your point of like, okay, if this customer does that, then you kind of learn a little bit about them. It's taking that learning and kind of using it to provide a better experience.
Yep. Or even showing you other products. Shutterfly is a great project where they personalize all of these, because everything they have is personalized, right? And they have this great little algorithm that they developed to show your photos on products. It's amazing. So that's that, personalizing everything right down to the image on the item you want to buy.
Yeah, that's useful. How many more people are more likely to buy it when they can see and visualize what that is going to look like? Yeah, that's cool stuff. Yeah.
I'll hop in with an example. Yeah. One of my favorites is Sephora. I'm definitely not a power user of this particular product, but I think it speaks to the I think the power of like AI enabled visual search, and I think like the matching, algorithm that that team has developed is really powerful. So, you want to buy some, some makeup, you can basically upload a profile photo of your face, and then you can sort of get matched to the right kind of color treatment that you would want to buy in store. Because I think all of us can relate to the experience of being just overwhelmed by choice. And like the sheer number of products available. So if you can have a brand really, and what I think is pertinent here is, personalization for the sake of it, really isn't going to, sort of move the needle. I think you need to be really problem focused and customer focused. Like, what are we actually trying to solve here? And in this particular case, it's like, hey, can you help me pick out kind of the, my makeup faster, right? And pick out the sort of right product the first time. I can also just attest that I loathe the kind of return kind of culture that we're in, but it's an easy default to shop online, but that return experience can sometimes be a bit of a headache. So, I like the fact that this is a technology that makes shopping easier for the consumer. You get the product right the first time, and oh, by the way, right now they can start to again, with your permission, start to build a bit of a recommendation engine around that to say, hey, you might try this, or have you tried layering this product with this product, right? And again, you can sort of think about all the different possibilities around that. So I think that's a really cool example, real life example that's kind of in the market right now by Sephora. And I think clients are going to ignore investments in this space at their own peril. 73% by kind of one of Salesforce latest reports on the connected customer. 73% expect companies to understand their unique needs and wants. Right? 62% said, "Hey, I want this. I want the company to be able to predict." What my next kind of action is, or kind of product desire or whatnot. These are expectations, right? I think the language around that is actually really, really pertinent and powerful. So that's an example. Of course, it's not without its challenges, right? Like you could think about, just the data privacy concerns here, right? You can think about the bias and discrimination that the model is sort of trained on. Right, that might be recommending something that's not really, that's kind of completely sort of out of bounds or out of field, and that can create some distrust or just some like frustration on the consumer side. So, those are definitely concerns to be sort of built in as companies are investing in this technology. But I think the possibilities are pretty powerful.
Yeah, definitely. Data has become a hot topic, like data privacy, and we're talking about all these ways that we're going to use information to provide a different experience, and not everyone's on board with that, or they got to see the value of it for them to maybe not be as concerned with the risks of it.
So I think the key is we call it the creep factor, right? Like you want to make it personalized, but you don't want to be creepy, right? Like we all learned that Facebook gets a little creepy, right? Like all of a sudden something I talked about yesterday is served up to me in an ad. That's too much, right? But at the same time, I also, as a user, expect you to know what I've liked, know what I've purchased in the past, and be able to make recommendations to me. So I know somebody had asked a question, is there too much personalization? And I think sometimes, yes, if it's creepy, right? We have to be very ethical in how we use the data that we have on our users and how we help them, because you want to help them through their journey, right? You don't want to make it creepy.
Right. There's a fine line there. For sure. What if we all want to chime in on, we've seen some trends, kind of talked about post-pandemic, how things have changed. What would you say are trends that you're really paying close eye to right now?
I'll give my insights to that. One of the things is we're starting to notice the tools to enable people to build what they want and how they want to get things. Those tools have to be extremely user-friendly. And we've been looking at software. We've been looking at tools that are not just voice-enabled or web-enabled, but what are some of the things that we as a consumer can add to say, hey, if you see this, can you please alert me or let me know? So we've been looking at a lot of those trends because I don't think the digital platforms were as robust as they needed to be to make me feel confident that you're protecting my privacy, that you know what I need at this point in time. Back to your Sephora example, Trace. I mean, I don't want you to send me blush. I'm never going to wear blush. I want to wear something different. But how does that app and how do those digital tools enable me to have the right experience with that retailer? The other thing that we have been looking at are definitely the AR and the mixed reality. I'd love to be able to see products being used, a video and or somebody else that has an experience, whether or not it is somebody putting a blog post together, or you're sending me a link, or you're just alerting me to say that product that you wanted, it is now available, and you might want to look at how other customers have experienced it. So that sharing of information without, to use Maya's word, being too creepy, allows us to look at more sophisticated tools that help people not just learn about what's available and out there, but actually get what they need.
One of the other trends I've really seen too is subscription service, right? So I've noticed this especially around my TV, right? So there's Netflix and Disney Plus and Discovery Plus and Everybody Plus. I think, companies have really realized the benefit of having a steady stream of income rather than maybe the up and down of e-com, right? We discovered during pandemic that things can get wildly different depending on what's going on in the real world, right? So when the pandemic hit, a lot of us turned to the digital. We went to Amazon to shop because we couldn't go to the store. And now, like a lot of us, well, there's a convenience with a subscription, right? Like I don't have to think about it. So there's ease has always been, in my experience, a real big piece of trend. Like the easier you make it, the more people will use the thing, right? The easier it is to use, the more frequently they're going to use it. So whether that be your checkout experience or your purchase experience, or like a subscription experience, right? Like do it once and forget about it is so easy, right? You don't have to think. And I think that's, for me, one of the biggest keys of user experience is don't make me think, right? There's a book called Don't Make Me Think when it comes to user experience. And I think it's really important because anytime you put barriers in front of users where they have to think hard about, oh, what is this? What do I have to do? Do I need a coupon to check out, right? Like make it easy. You have a coupon, have it automatically apply in your cart, right? I see more and more of those kinds of trends coming. I've shopped places where it's like, oh, we have all these different things going on. And it's really, that analysis paralysis where I'm confused, like what's the best deal going to be for me? And I've, had those things applied to my shopping cart. So it's easy for me to check out. It's like, oh, I'm getting the best deal, right? Or something like Raktan or Honey, or I think Capital One has one now where they're scrubbing the internet for coupons for you, right? So I think it's always kind of been a trend, is that easy, right? Let's make it easy. I actually had a user say to me, and we were doing some research, and she actually said, make it as easy. I will give you all of my money. Just make it easy for me. Here, have it. You already have the thing that I want to buy. The easier you make it, for the more money I'm just going to give you because it's easy.
Right. Yeah, that's one of those things where consumers are so savvy now about shopping, and they're like, I've had times where I shop and I'm like, don't they know what I'm trying to do by now? Don't like we're almost expected. It's kind of a weird situation now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Mara, just to build on that, I think, yeah, ease is critical. I think I'll sort of relate that to just social commerce, right? On your various kind of social media platforms. It's a $36 billion kind of per year business right now, but it's growing over 30% sort of year over year. That figure might be at maybe a year outdated. But there's a lot of buying activity, still a relatively small portion of all kind of total e-commerce sales, but there's a lot of buying activity and growth in that area. So, I would say, integrating kind of with tools and technologies, in your kind of social and kind of marketing, kind of positions on these social platforms, Instagram, TikTok, although that's a big question mark right now, at sort of the highest levels, and other spaces, meeting your consumers where they're at, I think is a worthwhile investment, something that I think will continue to grow, and certainly making it easy to do business on those platforms where your consumers are spending their time and attention, is certainly a worthwhile investment, exploring for a brand. So I think that trend continues. The second trend, which there was Mara, I think you mentioned kind of there was something unique about kind of, photos around like graduation, et cetera, that are kind of unique to American culture. I think what's unique let's talk about China for a moment. I think live commerce is something that is going to be a trend that I don't think is really broken through here, although we kind of have we're starting to have more of that kind of influencer-led, relationship kind of on behalf of brand with your consumer. So I think that continues, but the scale at which China is really kind of plugging into the live e-commerce sort of first model is pretty wild, right? Live commerce just being, right, prominent figures, what they call key opinion leaders, right, will basically showcase either whether it's like a live auction or just sort of event or kind of product launch, right? And they'll be kind of showing things off, new products to their consumers, live streamed to their audience, right? And you can kind of work, you can obviously engage from a like, comment, bring your friends kind of into the same room together for these big splashy events, right? And
So
then
it's kind of like QVC on the internet. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, it's
right.
like
I haven't experienced this, so I'm listening to you, and I'm like, wow, it's like QVC.
I think
Maybe
that's the right.
QVC laid the groundwork for what we're going to see in the future.
Yeah,
I think that's that's the right kind of analogy to think about. And just to give you a sense of scale, right? I mentioned the $36 billion social spend in the US. There was 12 billion that was spent in a single day through live commerce in China. Granted, that's their biggest shopping day of the year. It's called Singles Day. If you don't know about that, and check it out. It's kind of like our Black Friday or something like that. But that's a massive amount going through live commerce. So I would say brands should kind of be on the watch for that. And there's a lot of platforms that are helping to enable that type of transaction. So one to keep an eye on.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Learning all about this generation's QVC. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I did want to make sure we addressed questions in the Q&A. If people had burning questions, I think I see a couple in there. And maybe one element that we haven't really touched on, I'll start with the one about post-purchase experience. So there's everything, okay, great. They bought it, our customer bought it and they're done. Well, we know that's not true, right? Returns, after purchase kind of product care, things like that. So kind of just wanted to open that to the group. I think what it says is curious about how we all think about post-purchase customer service, AI chatbots, self-service tools, things like that.
So in my eyes, there really isn't, it's not so much of a post-purchase. It goes back to that lifetime value, right? Like you don't want this customer to just goodbye. You want them for forever, right? Like that's what, in an ideal world, you want them to keep coming back, right? I think, Maria, your experience is really unique, right? Because you have travelers, some of them are business travelers, they're coming back week over week, month over month, right? Like you want them to be happy with whatever it is that they're getting from you. And I think Maria also talked about chatbots, right? So AI can do really wonderful things with chatbots. I know when I worked at Gwenny B, which is the fashion service, we had a chatbot that could help you with finding clothes, right? Like, I don't know what to wear. I need to, find something. And I worked on an AI chatbot that would help you pick items out. They'd put together collections for you and say, hey, here's a collection to look at that you may like. And it's not just about post-purchase anymore. I think it's more about lifetime value, right? So there's pieces to that are post-purchase, like returns, but it's all about how can we keep you as a customer? How do you want to keep coming back? How can I make your experience so wonderful that we become an integral part of your day, right?
I think you'll also start to see that people are willing to share a little bit more about themselves. So there's an app, it's more or less along the lines of like rent a wardrobe. So if I'm a business traveler and I have to go to New York just for one day for one meeting, but I also want to run after work, maybe I take a smaller bag, I just take my running gear, but I tell an organization at the other end in New York airport, this is my size, this is the suit I want, I'm just going to bring my shoes, I'm going to rent it from you from the day I put the suit on, go to my meeting, return it when I hit the airport, and I fly home. That's a big difference between expecting me to receive a package in the mail, try on the suit, it doesn't fit, and yet I'm supposed to be on a plane tomorrow. So I think the less risk and the fact that we're going to start to share a little bit more about ourselves so we get that in premier customer experience, I think that's going to see a reduction in some of the post I'm not happy purchaser.
Yeah, I think there's some good points made in both of those. I like this notion of like a continuum of just a customer relationship after a point in time buy. And so, I think brands that really find ways to alleviate the pains kind of post-purchase and just sort of factor that out of the equation, or find a way to resolve that and build that into their pricing model and their overall economics, will likely win the day. I think there's been this sort of expectation, sort of drift towards, and it, a kind of a post purchase, right after you make a purchase, you want kind of everything to be sort of easy, especially in e-commerce, right? Some things just kind of require a bit of a touch and feel, right? Or you might have that kind of consumer that has that buyer remorse. I mean, the last thing that you want to do is kind of lock in someone who was maybe on the fence to purchase anyway, but they went ahead with the purchase and now they kind of regret it. And so like, how do you just kind of make that right as a brand? So, I very much like it's going to be contextualized to the industry and the business that you're in. So the best thing that you can do is get to know what the variety of different pain points or reservations or kind of needs are following maybe initial purchase, whether it's setup, care, or maybe they just want to continue to have a relationship, with the brand or the brand ambassadors and kind of engage from that way. How do they learn and become smart about how to use the product, right? We all kind of have that sense of, we don't use maybe a ton of especially for a technology product, like we only use sort of a limited amount of features, right? So how can you continue to educate the consumer? So it just depends on the product or the service that you're offering. But I think you do, to Mark's point, really want to approach about how do we just continue to build a relationship. And that doesn't need to look like we need to, sort of coax them to buy from us again, right? They'll engage with you on their own timeline. And so the best thing that you can do is provide content that makes them smarter, right? More capable, provide content that's education, that's entertaining, right? Provide content that's inspiring, and just continue to have that conversation with the client. And then they'll, you make it easy enough and you have a compelling enough product or service, they'll certainly come back and buy. And you can thread these technologies in to help, sort of address some of those pain points, right? So chatbots are a great tool for like an initial sort of first tier kind of set of, solution resolution, right? Before you maybe want to get to, talk to someone. So there's definitely tools that can kind of aid in that kind of post-purchase experience, but those are some of my thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's it. It's a time where if you buy something, that moments after of like, how easy was it to use product or service is huge for someone to be that kind of repeat customer, right? If they buy a Sleep Number bed and they don't know how to use it, then that's going to affect their overall opinions, right, about it. So it makes a big difference kind of at that point. Okay, great.
And that's a good call out, Max, because so what I'm doing at Sleep Number really doesn't have anything to do with commerce, but it has everything to do with lifetime value and engagement, right? So to your point, somebody just bought a very expensive bed, right? And the app that I do makes, helps them learn how to use it, because we know that if you use our product and you get a better night's sleep, and you have this thing that's super easy to use, and be able to adjust your bed and give yourself the best night possible, or learn how to learn things to how to help you sleep better, that you'll come back and you'll refer your friends. So there's that inferred commerce, right? So where I don't actually have anything to do with checkout or purchase, I'm strictly post-purchase in my current role. But it's everything to do with making sure that you have such a wonderful experience with our brand that not only are you coming back, you're going to tell all your friends about it. And that is huge. I think that actually, I don't know the exact figures, but I know that for Sleep Number, it contributes to a very large percentage of our purchase comes from referrals from other sleepers who are very happy with our brand. And I used Sleep Number for over 20 years, way before I ever started working here. So it was so exciting for me because I was totally a product believer. It's been the best night's sleep I've had. I can't sleep without my bed. And I love telling my friends about it, right? So we make that experience super exciting and engaging, and easy to use so that you keep coming back.
Right. I love it. You were an original believer of the Sleep Number, which I have not slept on before, but
oh my gosh, it's an amazing experience.
very cool. Let me see here. I think we have time for maybe a question or two. So I can just make sure if I haven't missed anything in the Q&A, I will be checking it. Okay, we just had one come in. I think we've touched a little bit on the other ones, but otherwise chime in and let me know. But kind of question back to payment models about kind of rise of the buy now, pay later loyalty programs. So we touched on that a little bit earlier. Maybe where have you seen that kind of pop up in your world?
I've seen it a little bit in the younger generations. The younger generations, and I think we mentioned it earlier, the Capital One programs, so they can start to get credit and they can start to balance and they can start to see, well, my paycheck only goes so far, but let's see if I can just pay it out over time. I think it is a way for companies to create this brand loyalty They do want you to remember them and to come back if you've had a good experience, but allowing people to choose how they pay, choose the method and the timeline just gives them another option, and it empowers them or makes them feel like they're being empowered.
I think, Maria, you just touched on something really important, and that is the millennials and Gen Z, their cash flow is very different than Gen X and Boomer, right? Like Gen X and Boomer, we purchased once and we were done, but they are having more limited income. They're having more expenses and things like education that my generation did not have. And they really have become, I kind of coined them as the rental generation, right? Because they do have it's all about that buy now, pay later, or pay over time, or subscription model, right? They do it with their music. They do it with their books. They do it with their clothing. They do it with almost everything. And that it's so they can have that super luxe experience without having to have the super luxe cash flow incoming, right? So, and it's all about experience generated experiences these days, as opposed to having maybe that physical thing that they're going to have for forever, because they've realized that on some of these payment models, right, like a subscription base, you always get the new thing, right? Instead of buying a car, you can lease one, and then you get a new one every so many, 3 years or whatever. Or if you rent clothes, you don't have to, like it goes out of fashion in a few months. You don't have to worry about that because you're getting the next thing in the next box, right? So I think there's been a fundamental shift in how consumers are looking at things. And I think that's only going to continue as Gen Z continues to grow older and the generations coming behind them. I'm very curious to see how they're going to react to e-com models, right? And that whole payment structure, I think, is really key to generational differences, for sure. I think that's a really interesting call out.
Yeah, I'm a little mixed on buy now, pay later. I do know, so, I mean, there's just some interesting statistics. I do think it skews more of a younger generation. I think like the average debt load on someone on kind of a BNPL sort of payment is just north of $800. But over like, I think the stat that I saw was about 50% of consumers who used buy now, pay later actually regretted the purchase because it was too expensive. It'd be interesting to kind of compare that into more traditional like credit card transactions. Like, are we seeing like, is that just sort of kind of one of the same, and this is just sort of a new way of kind of borrowing to, against kind of future income to pay for something now. So I'm not sure. I think further investigation is needed there. And more than half of BNPL like users are delinquent on their payments, and that's a huge percentage. So yeah, Maria, I think I'm conflicted about the statement around choice. I think empowering users ultimately to kind of sort of set up their kind of payment model, or sort of based on their own financial circumstances. Generally, I think that's a worthwhile investment. I think it needs to be paired with maybe some education. Like, just having access to the tool and technology doesn't in and of itself make it like a good thing, right? And so how can we, one of the things that I've noticed just kind of on social is there's just a lot more like financial like literacy content kind of being shared and sort of swirled around. I think there's a lot of interest and desire for that kind of content. So how can you make your consumers, the way that I would think about it is, how can you make your consumers smart on these sort of payment models, right? You have some different options to engage with us financially. Here are kind of maybe the trade-offs, or kind of go here to learn more. And so I like that, where like a brand is investing in helping to just like educate, its consumers in the experience or in their own journey. So that's something that I would look
Right.
at, whether it's digital literacy. Max, I think you mentioned that up, at the front of the call, whether it's financial literacy, those sorts of things. If a brand is helping me just to be a more educated consumer, like fantastic. That's something that I can get behind. So
yeah, cool stuff. Yeah, has humanity or technology surpassed humanity kind of moment happened, right? Just having the technology is one thing, but how to use it is also important. So interesting stuff. Yeah, and thanks for all the panelists. Thank you all for kind of covering that. We're gonna kind of wrap up and close out here with just a few minutes left. So we'll do that, and I think we have just maybe one slide or two left that we'll have up. But yeah, so wraps up our panel for today. But wanted to close off on some of the work Propeller does. So we work in both the e-commerce space and also more broadly, just some of the work that we do. So it's one of the many types of client projects we have and can help your business with e-commerce or other solutions. Should be no surprise if we have a conversation about it as a consulting firm, that this is work that we do and we play in this space. And we also play in the kind of broader experience design space, as well as data and analytics, people and change, tech transformation. So as the slide says, we partner with organizations to navigate and succeed in an increasingly volatile business landscape. So instilling speed, agility, we want to help our clients drive long-term growth, increase their internal efficiency, and build stronger capabilities. I feel like that sums up really all the work that we do. So if you have a project in mind, we'd love to help you make momentum too. So if you're curious and you want to learn more, maybe this is your first time hearing about Propeller, or you're kind of familiar with us, but just want to learn more, you could reach us two ways. So either emailing us info@propeller.com or visiting propeller.com as well. There's lots of great info on the website. You could see a full list of services beyond kind of what I just mentioned. And also case studies of past project work is on there too, which I think is really kind of helpful if you're interested in learning more. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you all for attending. Again, thank you to panelists taking time out of your day to be here, share your experiences. Definitely appreciate that. I will say, look out for a survey in a follow-up email. We'd love to hear more. This is really the first of kind of hopefully a series of multiple events. So you can take part in kind of shaping what the future of this series looks like, including if there are any topics you'd want to hear more about. So definitely, this is your chance to ask if there is something you'd like us to cover. If you want to see more about future Propeller hosted events, follow our LinkedIn account. There's information just like maybe how you found out about this event is on there. We'll have kind of post-event info, articles, blog posts, all the stuff that could really help you stay sharp and smart, regardless of what industry or field that you work in. There's great content there. So yeah, just thank you again. We're closing right, a minute before the end of the hour. So enjoy the rest of your day and take care.